One of the most important topics in the entire mathematics is what we call quadratic equation. Quadratic equation is an equation under algebra and it's one of the fundamentals of algebra that you must know if you are going to do well in mathematics. If you want to know everything that has to do with quadratic equation, I'm starting a series on quadratic equation today. And foundation is very, very important. So join me as we explore the world of quadratic equation and expression. Hi, this is just academic mathematics, where we make you a mathematics genius. Without further ado, let's go straight to business. I'm starting a series on quadratic equation. I have a write-up here already in order not to waste our time writing it out. Now, what is quadratic equation? Let's start from there. Quadratic equation. A quadratic equation is a polynomial equation of degree 2. So what makes quadratic a quadratic is that quadratic is a polynomial equation of degree 2. Degree 2. I will explain this further, which means the highest power of the variable in the equation or expression is 2. The general form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, where a, b, and c are constants. A, b, and c represent numbers. They are real numbers. S is the variable being solved for. So if you replace A, B, and C with numbers, you see that what we're actually solving for is x. S is the variable being solved for. But more importantly, take note, the leading coefficient, that is the coefficient of s squared, A, cannot be 0. A is not equal to 0. And do you know why? If A is 0, then the remaining equation will be what? Because if A is 0, 0 times s squared will give you 0. So the remaining equation will be bs plus c equals to 0. It's not a quadratic equation. This bs plus c is a linear equation because the highest power of the variable being solved for in this equation is s raised to the power of 1. So whether it is linear, quadratic, cubic, quartic, and so on, all of them are called what? Polynomial. So they are all polynomial equations. But what differentiates one from the other is the degree. The highest exponent of the variable being solved for. So the first thing you need to know is to identify quadratic equation. How to identify quadratic equation. Identifying quadratic equation. Name the following equations. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes or no? It is a quadratic equation. And why is it a quadratic equation? Because of this square here. In this equation, the highest power, there is another x here, which is s raised to the power of 1. And this is s raised to the power of 2. So when the highest power is 2 of the variable you are solving for, then the equation is a quadratic equation. So this one is quadratic. This is quadratic. How about this? The only x here is this 7x. And this means 7s raised to the power of 1. So the highest power of this equation, of the variable you are solving for in this equation, is 1. Therefore, this is not a quadratic. This is a linear equation. This is a linear equation. This is not a quadratic equation. This is a linear equation. Now, is this a quadratic equation? Oh yes, it is a quadratic equation. If you consider the brackets as it is separately, it's not quadratic. This bracket now is not quadratic because this is raised to the power of 1. This is raised to the power of 1. But if you are to open this bracket, you will notice that 2s times s will give you 2s squared. And 2s squared, which will now be the highest power of this equation, is raised to the power of 2, that is 2s squared. So this is a quadratic equation. This is a quadratic equation. If you open the bracket of this equation now, you are going to get something like 2s squared plus 3x minus 4. So notice that the highest power is 2. I'm going to explain this more as we progress later. But let's continue for now. Minus 4. Now look at this. Is this a quadratic equation? No. Why? Because this time around, the highest power of this variable being solved for x is raised to the power of 3, not 2. Even though there is 2 here, but the highest in this one is 3. So when the highest is 3, it's a cubic function, it's a cubic equation. Now, is this a quadratic equation? No. This cannot be a quadratic equation, because if you open this bracket, you are going to have 3s raised to the power of 4. So the highest power in this equation now is s raised to the power of 4, that is 4. So therefore, this is a what? A quadratic equation. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes, this is a quadratic equation. And why is it a quadratic equation? It's a quadratic equation because the highest power of the variable is 2. So what makes it quadratic is not because it's exactly like this, whereby you have s squared, x, and a number without x. No. What makes it quadratic is this power here. So even without these 2, with just this square equals to 0, it's a quadratic equation. But when this is missing, it's no longer a quadratic equation. So this is a quadratic equation as it is now. This is a quadratic equation. This is a linear equation. This is a quadratic equation. This is a cubic equation. This is a quadratic equation. So those are the equations. Are you get what I'm saying? Those are the equations that makes up that is here now. So quadratic, linear, quadratic, cubic, quadratic, and quadratic. Now let's move further. Now let's take this thing further. Now that brings me to changing roots to equation. The first thing we are going to be looking at under this heading is what I call changing roots to equation. Changing roots to equation. Changing roots to equation. Listen very well. Before I go into this, I want to say something. All quadratic equations within real value has 2 answers. In most cases, every equation in algebra is defined within a real value, except otherwise they said you can go outside the borders of real value and you cannot go and consider complex numbers and all that. But all quadratic equation has 2 answers. The 2 answers is what called the roots of the equation in quadratic term. So the root of a quadratic equation is also known as the answer. So in quadratic term, instead of calling it answers, we call them roots. I get what I'm saying? Therefore, changing roots to equation is to change quadratic answer to the original equation that has the answer. I will show you how to go about it. It's very simple. Now, I have 2 examples here. I'll quickly solve and I will show you more. Now they say, find a quadratic equation whose roots are -3 and 7 with respect to x. There are 2 ways you can find this equation, but I'm going to show you the first method. There is another way of finding quadratic roots. We call it using sum and product of roots, but that one we'll treat it later. Now, if we are finding the equation that has these 2 answers with respect to s, it can be with respect to y, it can be with respect to p. So it doesn't mean it's not only x, it can be any variable. So if it's with respect to s, we are saying that after solving the equation, s is equals to -3. Are you following? Because there are 2 now. Or you can say that s is equals to what? 7. So those are the 2 equations after solving this equation with respect to s. So the next thing we have to do is to equate this to 0 and equate this to 0. If you equate this to 0, this 3 will come here. And if this 3 comes to this side, you are going to get x plus 3 equal to 0 and x minus 7 equals to 0. So the next move now is to equate both of them to 1, 0 by multiplying these two. This is what I mean, that x plus 3 times x minus 7 is equals to 0. So by the time we expand this bracket now, we will get our answer. I get what I'm saying? Because it was like this when they separated it in this form. Are you getting it now? So I'm returning it in this form. Now let's expand. By expansion, this x will times this 2. Of course, you know that this 3 will times this 2. But let me show it for the sake of understanding for this one in particular. So this x here will times this 2, x minus 7. And this plus 3 will also times this 2, s minus 7 equals to 0. So we open the bracket. We have that s times s is what? S squared. S times 7 is what? 7s. 3 times s is what? 3s. 3 times minus 7 minus 21 is equals to 0. So what do? You will notice that these two are in the same family. This is raised to the power of 2. These two are raised to the power of 1. 7s raised to the power of 1. 3s raised to the power of 1. So I can add these two. So I bring this one down. Then minus 7s plus 3s will give me what? Minus 4x. Then what? Minus 21 equals to 0. So this is the equation that when you solve, it will give you these two answers, minus 7 and minus 3 and 7 with respect to x. So that is how to change quadratic roots to what? Answer. Follow me, we have a lot to do. Now, look at example 2 here. Look at example 2 here. I'll shift this a bit. Look at example 2 here. Form the quadratic equation whose roots are s equals to this and s equals to this. You can see it here. Now, what they are saying is that s, after solving a quadratic equation, one of these equations here, s is equals to this and s is equals to this. So what we are going to do is simple. S is equals to minus 2 over 3 and s is equals to 1 over 2. So what we are going to do here now is, if you add 1 under here and cross multiply, or we want to make this, we don't want this to look like a fraction, we want to remove this fraction. If you times this by 3, times this by 3, when 3 times 3, 3 will cancel, 3 times this, 3 will cancel 3, 3 times this, you have 3x. Or you can add 1 and cross multiply. S will times 3, you have 3s. It's the same thing, equals to minus 2. Nothing has changed. That is this times this times 1 under. Or multiply both sides with 3. 3 times this will give you this. When you times this with 3, 3 will cancel 3, you are left with this. And do the same thing here. You will get what? 2s is equals to 1. So the next step you have to take is to equate it to 0, the way you did here. So you have that what? 3x plus 2 is equals to 0 and 2x minus 1 is equals to 0. So what do we do from here? We now go ahead to combine it like this, which says that 3s plus 2 times 2s minus 1 is equals to 0. So what do? We open the bracket. This will times this 2. 3s times 2s, 6s squared. 3s times minus 1, minus 3x. Then 2 will times this 2. 2 times 2s will give me 4x. 2 times minus 1 minus 2 equals to 0. Therefore, we conclude that 6s squared, these two are in the same family. Minus 3s plus 4s will give me what? Plus 1s, that is plus x. Then what? Minus 2 is equals to what? Is equals to 0. And if you look at it carefully, that is option D. That is option D. So option D is the correct answer here. 6s squared plus s minus 2. When you solve this equation, these are the two answers you will get. Are you following? Now you can watch this over and over again, but I need to move on. Now, look at this. Look at this. We have another set now. we have another set. And here, we're asked to find the equation whose roots are this and this. The same thing is applicable. We want to find the equation whose roots are 2 and minus 3 whole number 1 over 2. So, of course, it's with respect to s, because all this answer has x. So, we are saying that s is equals to 2, and we are saying that s is equal to what? 2 times 3, 6. 6 plus 1, 7. That is minus 7 over 2, an improper fraction. So, the same thing is applicable. This one will give you what? 2 is equals to s. Let's repeat this. If you cross multiply here, you have that what? 2s is equals to what? Minus 7. Equate to 0 now. You have that what? 2 minus s minus 2 is equals to 0. And what? And 2s plus 7 is equals to 0. Of course, what do? You equate to 1, 0. We have that x minus 2 times 2s plus 7 is equals to 0. We open the bracket to get the equation. This s will times this 2. S times 2s, 2s squared. S times 7, 7x, minus 2 times 2s, minus 4s, minus 2 times 7, minus 14 is equals to 0. You can add these two together. So add that what? 2s squared. 4s minus 7 is what? Plus 3x minus 14 equals to 0. And that will give us option what? Option D again. So it's going to be option D again. Option D is correct. 2s squared plus 3s minus 14. Now let's move on to this. The game is beginning to change. Let's see. For this one now, look at this. Given that the root of this, as squared plus bs plus c equals to 0, are this and this, find the value of abc. Don't be carried away with this. It's not a big deal. The roots of this equation are this and this. What they are saying, and the equation is with respect to x, obviously. So what they are saying is that x is equals to 3 whole number 1 over 2, and s is equals to minus 2 whole number 1 over 3. We convert both to improper fraction. X is equals to 6, 7 over 2, and s is equals to 6 minus 7 over what? 3. Of course, if you cross multiply or multiply both sides with 2 here, you have what? 2s is equals to 7, and what? You have what here? 3s is equals to minus 7. You equate both of them to 0. If you equate both of them to 0, you get what? 2s minus 7 is equals to 0, and what? 3s plus 7 is equals to 0. So what do? This, we equate both of them to 1, 0. Then you have 2s minus 7 times 3s plus 7 is equals to 0. So we open the bracket. We have that 2s times 3s is what? 6s squared. 2s times 7 is what? Plus 14x. Minus 7 times 3 minus 21x. Minus 7 times plus 7 minus 49 is equals to 0. Now, if you relate these two, because notice that this is raised to the power of 2. So, but we can add 14. We can get 14 minus 21 because they are both raised to the power of 1. And 14 minus 21 will give me what? Minus 7. So we'll get what? 6s squared minus 7x minus 49 is equals to 0. Now, how do you find the value of ABC? Simple. When you now compare this equation now to as squared plus bs plus c equals to 0, you will now notice that a is equals to what? 6. A is equals to 6. The coefficient of s squared here is 6. The coefficient of s squared here is a. The coefficient of s here is b. Is equals to what? Minus 7. While c is equals to minus 49. So that is what to do in this case. So a is 6, b is minus 7, and c is what? 49. Are you following? Okay. Now, we're almost there. I want to show you more. Now look at this, example 5. Example 5 says that the quadratic equation whose roots are 1 minus root 13 and 1 plus root 13. You can see all these things I'm showing you are exam questions. Now, if we want to find the equation, we are saying that x, of course, is equals to 1 minus root 13. And x is equals to 1 plus root what? 13. The same way, the same procedure. Let's equate them to 0. Well, that 1 minus s minus 1 plus root what? 13 equals to 0. And x minus 1 minus root 13 equals to 0. So what do? We equate both of them to 1, 0. So we have x minus 1 plus root 13 times x minus 1 minus root 13 equals to 0. So what do we do from there? We open the bracket. This s will times this 3. 1 will times this 3. Root 13 will times this 3. So let's start with this. S times s is what? X squared. S times minus 1 minus x. X times minus root 13 minus x root 13. Let's go again. Minus 1 times s minus x. Minus 1 times minus 1 plus 1. Minus 1 times minus root 13 plus root 13. Root 13 times s plus s root 13. Root 13 times 1 minus root what? 13. Then root 13 times minus root 13 will give us minus 13. Root 13 times root 13 is 13, according to the law of surd. Root 13 times root 13 is the same thing as root 13 times 13, which is what? 169. And square root of 169 will still give you 13, equals to what? 0. So, but notice something here. If you notice carefully, you will see that this is minus x root 13. This is plus s root 13. So it's just like saying minus 1 plus 1. So this will give you 0. They are the same thing. And again, this is plus root 13. This is minus root 13. It will give you 0. So we're actually left with s squared minus x, then what? Then plus 1, and then minus what? 13 equals to 0. So finally, we have that s squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 13 is what? Minus 12 equals to 0. This is the equation we are looking for. S squared minus 2s minus 12 equals to 0. This time around, answer is E. So, you can always watch this video over and over again. Okay, that brings us to the last part of this class. Make sure you follow all my classes with regard to quadratic equation. I'll be teaching a whole lot in quadratic equation. There will be many videos I'm going to release in quadratic equation alone. Okay, let me shift this one to this side so that we can concentrate here for now. Now, we have this. The root of the equation, this, are this and this, where P and Q are constant. Find P and Q. Now, still simple. They are telling us that the root of this equation here is 1 and 3. So what you will do first is that x after solving the equation is 1 and x is equals to what? 3. The same thing. We equate to 0. X minus 1 is equals to 0 and x minus 3 is equals to 0. Equate to 1, 0. X minus 1 times s minus 3 is equals to 0. Expand to get the equation. S times s is s squared. S times minus 3 minus 3x. Minus 1 times s minus x. Minus 1 times minus 3 plus 3 equals to 0. Of course, this will give us s squared minus 4x plus 3 equals to 0. Does that make sense now? But if you look at this, it's not looking like this equation. So what you now need to do is to compare it to this equation. Compare to what? Compare to what? 2s squared. Okay, I see something now. Now, before we compare, notice that the equation we want to compare it with started with 2s squared. But this one here started with what? S squared. We can still actually go ahead and compare the equation. It's still the same thing. Now, plus P plus 1x plus Q equals to 0. Now, this is what this means. What's the coefficient of S square here? The coefficient of S square here is 2. The coefficient of S square in the equation we solve is not 2, it's 1. So the first thing we really need to do to enable us compare this coefficient is to make this equation look like this. What do we do? Since this one is 1 and this one is 2, let's multiply the whole of this with 2. In an equation, whatever you do to both sides is allowed. So if I multiply through with 2 times that one will give me what? 2x squared minus 8x plus what? 6 equals to 0. Now, it is at this stage that you can now compare the coefficients. Not here. You can't compare the coefficient here. We compare the coefficient now. Notice now, coefficient of S squared here is 2. Coefficient of S squared here is 2, which is balanced. What is coefficient of S here? Coefficient of S here is what? P plus 1, which is equals to, what is the coefficient of S in the one down? Minus 8. So how do I now find P? P is equals to minus 8 minus 1. So P is equals to minus 9. Then how do I find Q? Simple. Q here is the value without X. The value without S here is 6. Q is equals to 6. So this is P and this is Q. Can you see that now? So you have to make sure that before you compare I can't compare the coefficient here now, because if you compare the coefficient here, this equation and this one are not yet the same. But I can make this equation to look like this one by multiplying this equation all by 2 to give me this one. Now listen to this. This equation and this equation is still the same. Nothing has changed. If you solve this equation, the answer you will get is the same answer you will get when you solve this. I only multiply through with what? 2, which is still the same thing. Doing so, make it now look like this one. So when it's not looking like this one, it's now easy for me to compare the what? Coefficient to get the value of what? P and Q. Now let's close with this. I have to shift this a bit. Now we have this. The root of a quadratic of these are this and this. Find the value of A and B. This is another tricky one. Now let me show you what they are saying. S is equals to minus 4 and S is equals to what? 3 over what? 5. Of course, you know what we're to do. This is X plus 4 equals to 0, or this time this will give me what? 5S minus 3 equals to 0. Then we equate to 1, 0. X plus 4 times 5x minus 3 is equals to 0. Now what do we do next? We open the bracket, of course. S times 5s is 5x squared. X times minus 3 minus what? 3x. 4 times 5s will give me what? Plus 20x. Then 4 times minus 3 minus 12 equals to 0. Now with that, we now know that we have 5x squared plus 17x minus 12 equals to 0. This will give us 17. Now, if you notice that the equation, if the root of, notice that in this equation, there is minus 1, not 12, not minus 12. So the first thing we do is to make this equation to look like this one by making here to be minus 1. And the only way to make here to be minus 1 is to divide through with what? 12. So we have what? 5x squared over 12 plus 17s over 12 minus 12 over 12 is equal to 0. So here now we are saying that 5 over 12x squared plus 17 over 12x minus 1 is equal to 0. We have succeeded in making this equation to look like this. Notice that if you compare the coefficient, now you have as squared plus bs minus 1 equals to 0. We are comparing the coefficient now. Now notice that here is minus 1, here is minus 1. This and this is the same, because what I did to all. Even when you divide this one by 12 too, you still get 0 here. I get what I'm saying? So here now, what is now A here? A is the value of A here, the coefficient of S squared here, which is 5 over 12. And what is B? B is the coefficient of S, which is 17 over 12. These are the value of A and B. And that is how to solve this kind of equation. So I believe you have benefited from this class. Make sure you don't miss the other ones. I'm going to demystify and dismantle the entire quadratic equation. There will be a lot of videos. In our next class, we are going to go into methods of solving quadratic equation. Factorization method, we are going to be treating about 3 topics under that one alone. Completing the square method, formula method, many things we are going to be doing. So make sure you watch the whole series. If you are not following us, do that. And make sure you share this video. Very importantly, share the video. Share it. Let other people see. Let other people follow us. Let other people benefit from what we are doing. You get what I'm saying? So share the video on YouTube, on Facebook, on all social media platforms. If you are not subscribed or you are not following us on Facebook, do so. The handle is the same, Just Academy Mathematics. If you are in need of one-on-one tutorial, you are finding it difficult to understand, you want someone to put you through one-on-one, step by step, I am available. Just give me a message, send me a message via WhatsApp on the contact you are seeing on the screen. See you in our next class.